Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of It's Time We Talk. Now, in this episode, we are going to be taking a look, previewing the 2026 summer transfer window for the Big Five teams in England. Before I get started, if you're interested in reading any of my written work or any of the written work of my colleagues, please visit Reel, R-E-E-L, Wrap, W-R-A-P, entertainment.com to read, like I said, all of the written work by my colleagues and I. Uh, if you're watching on YouTube, please also feel free to give us a like on Spotify at It's Time We Talk. If you're on Spotify, please check out our YouTube page, Real Rap Entertainment, and also check out not only my podcast episodes, but also movie reviews and all types of other stuff that we have going on the channel. And without further ado, it's time for us to get right into it. So, of the big five teams in the Premier League, Man United, Chelsea, Man City, Liverpool, and Arsenal, four of them have a manager that was not with the team at the start of the previous season or going into the summer transfer window. And with the World Cup beginning in, I believe, 10 days, or 9 days now from the time of recording, it's going to be difficult for these teams to get their summer shopping done. You know, probably will not get done in an extremely timely fashion, but still, things are going to have to get done for these five teams, especially because a lot of them are adding players in the same positions. We've seen rumors and links for teams like Man United and Man City for midfielders. Same with Arsenal and Liverpool. Chelsea are rumored to be interested in defenders and attackers too. So a lot of these teams are going to be battling it out for the same players. You know, when it comes to the European stage, it seems like a lot of these teams, have bigger budgets than a lot of the other European clubs. And so it'll be interesting to see sort of how that all works out, especially like I said with the World Cup coming up. It'll take over a month to complete. Who knows, will deals get done during for players that are playing in the World Cup? So that'll be an interesting thing to look at. And it seems like I said, all but one of the big five teams in England are have a manager that wasn't there at the beginning of last year's summer transfer window. So, you know, all of these managers are going to need to be backed in the upcoming window and shown support by the boards of their new clubs. And when you look at it, I'll go one by one through the different scenarios. So Chelsea under Xabi Alonso, just brought him in. He was a free agent. His previous job was with Real Madrid, and there was a lot going on between him and the club. And he's brand new to the Premier League, a very distinct style of play that was very successful in Germany and caused them to be invincibles in the league, and they won the domestic cup. So Xabi Alonso knows what it takes to win games. It's just, can the Chelsea board back him to a point where they can allow their new manager? Let's also say that. I mean, in an age of so many head coaches, Chelsea proclaimed Xabi Alonso their new manager. So you'd have to think that he's going to get proper backing in the transfer window, considering it seems like he'll have more say than people like Liam Senior or Enzo Maresca or even Mauricio Pochettino. So that'll be an interesting thing to see. I mean, Chelsea, when it comes to their summer window, they're going to need a lot of different things. They're going to need a lot more experience too, and it seems like bringing in Xabi Alonso, it does seem like they want to go with more experience, both in the back, up front. They're going to have to deal with the saga of Enzo Fernandez. It seems like he wants to go. It doesn't seem like Chelsea want to sell him, but no Champions League, Europa League, or Conference League football for the upcoming season, it's going to be tough to convince some of your better players to stick around and try to, see through this project, even though you have brought in a pretty ambitious manager in Xabi Alonso. So with Chelsea, it's about experience. We don't know exactly where they're going to strengthen. Like I said, you'd imagine both in attack and defense, and potentially a new goalkeeper. I mean, is Robert Sanchez the long term solution that Xabi Alonso wants? We don't really know yet. So that'll be interesting to see. Man City with Enzo Maresca. Enzo Maresca is succeeding one of the best managers the Premier League has ever seen in Pep Guardiola. And even though Maresca is a disciple of Pep Guardiola, it's a big step taking the reins from him and um, coming in to replace him. Maresca does have experience at a big Premier League club with Chelsea, but you know that ended in a bit of turmoil. It ended in fallout, and whether you agree with Chelsea's ownership or you agree with Enzo Maresca, it shows that he believes in himself. And um will he be able to work well with the Man City board? It's been a long time since City fans were fed a new project. Pep has been there for 10 years, and there are some younger City fans who all they've known is Pep, and there are some fans, who aren't inspired by the acquisition of Enzo Maresca, considering his success or lack thereof with Chelsea. I mean, he did win the Club World Cup, but it's just an interesting scenario why Man City would go for him. It does make a bit of sense. Like I said, he's a disciple of Pep Guardiola, but we're yet to see what Man City want to do in the transfer window. I mean, they are very much linked and in advanced talks with Elliot Anderson, a midfielder from Nottingham Forest. Uh, is that something that they can get over the line before the World Cup starts? I don't think that's the case. I think whoever gets him might have to wait until after the World Cup finishes. And with City also, Rodri may be out of the window. Do you then bring in another person to replace him? John Stones is leaving. I mean, I don't think City need to bring in more central defenders, but do you consider bringing somebody new in? You've got to worry about not only incomings with City, but also outgoings. Omar Marmoush seems like he wants to go. Who do you bring in to replace him? James Trafford is leaving. Who do you bring in to replace him? It'll just be like I said. We're still very much early into it. It's June 2nd at the time of recording, and we're not really sure what these teams are going to do. I don't think any of these teams have had a confirmed transfer for the summer. I think besides Liverpool and Jeremy Jacquet, the young French center back that they brought in, but that was more of a January move, and then he's moving to Liverpool in the summer. So we'll get to Liverpool in a minute, but like I said, what will his relationship be like with the board after his fallout at Chelsea? Has the Man City board taken that into effect? And there's still the issue with 115. I mean, we're not really sure what's going to happen with it. There's been a lot of speculation, but they were still able to bring in Mark Gahey and Antoine Semenyo in the winter. So is that something that they're really worried about right now? I don't know. Will we see punishments handed down? Will we see those charges come to anything? We're not really sure yet. So a lot of question marks with Manchester City. I mean, they still do have a very good team at the moment, and I think even if you didn't really adjust the starting 11, it's not too bad. It's about depth. It's about, you missed out on the title. Is Enzo Maresca going to be able to help Man City to challenge for a title in his first year as Man City boss? So like I said, we'll see what happens there. Next up, Man United with Michael Carrick. Carrick did come in January, relieving uh, Darren Fletcher after Ruben Amorim was sacked again due to another fallout with the board. It seems like excuse me, Man United have seen a bit of a resurgence under Michael Carrick. Um, Not an extreme one. I, I'm currently of the thought that I think Man United probably would have Champions League football even if Amorim had stayed. I firmly believe that. I think, it was a bit of turmoil, but and some of the fans weren't super thrilled about the football that was being played, but I still think that if Amorim had stayed, I find it hard to believe, knowing how Liverpool fell off, knowing how Chelsea fell off, knowing how all these other clubs fell off. I find it hard to believe that Man United wouldn't have finished in the Champions League places. I feel like they were playing consistent enough to finish fifth at the very least. Anyway, going back to their summer window, forgetting about Amorim and focusing on Michael Carrick. He's the permanent boss. He's been given um, a multi-year deal. Will you know? Is this something of deja vu for Man United? After sacking Jose Mourinho in 2019, they then appointed Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as their new manager, a former player with not much head coaching experience. They hired him to be the new manager, and while there were a lot of songs sang about him, and while they did finish second one year, Ole never won a trophy, and the fans turned on him after a while, and it was agreed that maybe the whole vibes football under Ole wasn't the best idea. They brought in after that Ralf Rangnick and Erik ten Hag and Ruben Amorim, and now that Amorim's been sacked, you want to go back to a former player who managed with or who coached with Ole. It's not like this is his first rodeo. He's been here before, obviously, but Michael Carrick, of course, has not had the best of times with Middlesbrough, and it seems as a neutral fan, it seems very interesting that Man United fans are so quick to you know um, be so excited about a former player coming in when you had a former player come in that you really liked in 2019, and things didn't work out very well. Things ended a little unceremoniously. I know that they tried to bring Ollie back to be the interim, which I think would have been a horrible idea. But anyway, what we have to focus on now is Michael Carrick is the permanent boss. Whether Man United fans like that or don't like that, you know, that's the case now. The big question is, will the board back Carrick with ambitious signings? I mean, right now they are currently in advanced negotiations with Ederson of Atalanta, the midfielder. There's been talks about they've got to bring three midfielders in, at the very minimum two, with Casemiro and potentially Ugarte on the way out. So, do they go after somebody like Elliot Anderson? Do they go after somebody like Sandro Tonali or Aurelion Chouameni? I think, if you're the Man United board and you want people to be excited about Michael Carrick being boss, at least give him some ambitious signings. I know that you hired him because he's not going to be a big vocal figure when it comes to transfers. But if you want this to work out, and you don't want protests and all this other stuff, this has to work. This has to work. I mean, this is always going to be a huge managerial appointment for Man United, and I think you've got to get this right. And to get this right, to have the best chance of getting this right, you've got to back him as much as you can. It's a big risk keeping Carrick, the interim boss, as your permanent boss without really running a proper process. I know that we've heard some rumblings about they asked about some managers, but it didn't really feel like there was a proper process, proper interview process that was held down by, or that was held, excuse me, by the Manchester United board. So how will that work? Are they planning on just, trying to scrape by and hey, hopefully we get top five again and just continually top five? Or are they ambitious? Do they want to challenge for a league title? You have so much change, and you look at it, Michael Carrick is the second most tenured boss with his club out of the top five teams. Like I said, Liverpool, Chelsea, Man City, they're all with brand new coaches who have never coached a game for their current teams. So you've seen what Michael Carrick's football looks like. You know that he's the guy. It's about making these big decisions if you're Manchester United, if you're the board. You've got to do what you can to back him as much as you can. And then finally, we've got the most tenured boss with his current club, which is wild to think. I think going on 6 years now with Mikel Arteta at Arsenal. You know, um, Arsenal, of course, are the reigning Premier League champions, but of course lost the Champions League final to PSG. And if you're Mikel Arteta, if you're the Arsenal board, you're obviously ecstatic with the Premier League win, but you know that you came so close. You lost on penalties to PSG, even though I don't think Arsenal played very well against PSG, only having 25% possession and one shot on target in 120 minutes. I still think Arsenal probably think that they weren't too far off, and maybe with some changes that they can come back and win the Champions League. It's tough to win your domestic league and then win the Champions League, especially when you're talking about the Premier League, where the competition is so fierce, and it seems like there's more depth amongst all 20 teams in comparison to any other league in the world. So Arteta, we've seen some rumors that Arteta does not want to stand still and that he does want more signings. Will Arsenal go full guns blazing to win another title, to win the Champions League now? They know what it takes to win a title, and now you've got to make sure you stay there. You've got guys who are a little bit older who maybe you can move on from, like Gabriel Jesus or Leandro Trossard, um, guys like that. You have spaces where you can upgrade. What's the future hold for Martin Zubimendi, Mikel Merino? Are those guys who you still trust and you still want to believe in, or are they guys who, hey, we're ambitious, we want to upgrade? So where will they strengthen this offseason? I think obviously goalkeeper and center back. Honestly, the whole back four and goalkeeper, I don't think they need to do too much. Maybe depth at right back, because I don't know if Ben White is going to stay for the next year. Midfield, it definitely seems like Arteta wants another midfielder. It seems like even if Zubimendi is not the long-term solution, he had a great start to the Premier League season, but definitely tailed off towards the end. It seems like he definitely wants maybe another partner to Declan Rice, or more depth at that number 10 position. I would be shocked if they did not bring in a left winger, and maybe that means Gabriel Martinelli has to go. Do they bring in another striker? They've been rumored to be interested in Julian Alvarez, and now that there's a whole saga between Atletico Madrid and Barcelona, do they pounce and do they bring in a decent offer to Atletico Madrid, and sort of Atletico Madrid are able to stick a middle finger up at Barcelona? You never know. It's going to be interesting. I think that I think the transfer window for these top five teams is going to be very interesting. It's, it's going to set up for an incredibly exciting 2026-2027 Premier League year. And, I'm just excited not only for the World Cup, and I will be doing my World Cup predictions very, very soon, but it'll be exciting to see, how ambitious are these boards? How are these managers going to get backed? Do they want to get backed? So many questions still have to be asked. We are just beginning June. I'm hoping that we see some big moves happen before the World Cup. Who knows? Maybe we even see a big move of somebody not playing in the World Cup, a Tonali, um, someone who's not playing in the World Cup. Maybe we see them move. So let's see what happens. Let me know if what I've said today, if I'm speaking sense, if I'm speaking nonsense. Always, thank you so much for watching, guys. Please, before you go, make sure to leave a like on the video. Let me know what other kind of videos, what other kind of topics you want to see me discuss. I always appreciate that. And yeah, like I said, Premier League predictions are coming. Premier League predictions, World Cup predictions are coming pretty soon. Maybe some more stuff around Roland Garros. So it is a fun time to be a sports fan. It is a very fun time to be a sports fan. So take care, everyone. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.